Tampa Bay. This is a place that I have lived my whole life. I was born and raised here. I was born at Tampa General Hospital. This has been my hometown for 53 plus years. As one of my good friends would say, almost 60 years. I'm still far from 60, thank you very much. And I still look good for 53. But in any case, in those 53 years, at the point that I turned 18, as a matter of fact, I looked up my records not long ago because I was trying to determine a couple things as I was moving forward and getting ready for this very moment in time, for such a time as this time frame that comes once every 4 years. As I looked up my voter record and registration, I noticed that on my personal record it indicated that I knew I signed up to vote in high school. I didn't know the exact date or anything. Well, it has the exact date, and the exact date was exactly 11 days after I turned 18 years old. And that was one of the proud moments of becoming a legal adult male. Now, my adulthood status may be arguably at a later date, or maybe I'm still that just older kid and in a older man's body. But at the age of 18, I signed up to vote, and I have not missed a presidential election in my years since my time to vote. And at 18, I would say that I had a relatively liberal mindset. I was not guided by any principles outside of my personal beliefs and ideologies. So everything that I considered in regards to voting as a young man was based on things that related to my world that I was aware of. Part of that world was when I was signing up. I can remember certain things distinctly. There was a very nice lady who was registering students to vote. And as I was registering to vote, she asked me what party I was choosing that I wanted to be. And, I didn't really understand the party politics. I clearly have an understanding today, and for several years, and some people still don't get it. And I don't necessarily agree with this, but we are a two-party system. For us to actually go outside of a two-party system, I believe would probably take an act of God. And I believe in acts of God, so that there's a possibility that could take place at some point in history. But right now, we are clearly a two-party system. And that two-party system should be challenged by other parties and people that don't always agree with other identifying parties. And so, because it challenges our leaders, it challenges our voters, and it's important that our leaders and our voters are all challenged in their beliefs and their ideologies to not only ensure that what they believe is the truth, but also for what they stand for, they're willing to vote and stand for what they believe in. So at the age of 18, I was standing before this nice lady who was registering students to vote, and she asked me what party affiliation I'd like to be. And because I did not really understand the affiliations so as much as I do now, one of my questions to her was, well, who is President Bush? What party is President Bush? And this was George Bush Sr., or whatever his name, George Herbert Walker Bush. This was back in the 80s, and I loved Reagan. I did. I absolutely loved Reagan as a young person. I was, young teens when Reagan was in office, even younger than that. But when she said George Bush was a Republican, then I defiantly stated that I wanted to be a Democrat. And the reason why is because I distinctly remember as a young person that when George Bush was running for office, one of the things that he indicated was that he wanted to be the president that wanted to run for office as a president for education. And in my time, which I was still in high school, and I was a senior in high school, I was thinking to myself, he hasn't done anything for education. He didn't do anything. So I chose to be a Democrat at that time against George Bush, and respectfully, I'm glad I made that choice because I don't believe that George Bush at that time honored his commitments to being the leader that he was stating. He said no new taxes, and he raised taxes, and these were words that absolutely came from his mouth, and he did not follow through. And yes, we ran into a war, but he took us into that war. So all these things that took place, and I remember we went to war because I remember I was working at a little restaurant in Brandon called Garlic Louie's many years back, and I believe I was working there that night as a waiter when it was announced that we were going to war. And that was kind of a frightening time for me because you got to remember, I'm this young guy right out of high school. Hey, draft could exist, any other circumstances could exist. Me going into the service because I was a young person that needed direction. All those things could have come into play where I could have been involved during that time with war and conflict. And so I was against George Bush during that time. So over the course of years, I voted for Clinton, and I did not vote for Gore. At least I don't believe I did. No, I'm 100% sure I didn't vote for Gore, which I'm glad I didn't do that. And over time, my views, my beliefs, my ideologies started to form into a more conservative mindset. Now, I was still a liberal in some areas and conservative in others. And so the further I went on in life, there were things that molded me into more of a conservative today than I was 35 years ago. And 35 years ago was a good time in my life, and today's a good time in my life. But last week I went and early voted, and I was proud to, in the state of Florida, being able to cast my early vote once again after we were hit with back-to-back hurricanes, and our country in the south, from Florida all the way up to North Carolina and other parts of our country, have been devastated by two major storms, and some people are still and probably will be still for years recovering from these events. And in the course of this past week, when I went to go early vote, I had my daughter in my car with me, my oldest daughter. She's 17, so she'll be, in less than a year, she'll be old enough to be able to cast or at least register to vote as of next year. And so she asked me who I was voting for, and I shared with her who I was voting for. And I said, hey, listen, if you were able to vote today, who would you vote for? And she reiterated, she said, kind of my position, and well, I asked her, kind of why, and she really couldn't kind of give me a definitive as to why. And I want you to know that I have an older son. He's 19. He doesn't want to vote. He doesn't have any interest in voting. And all I wanted them to do was, and I told him, I told her the same thing. I want you to vote. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care what you vote for, but I would prefer that you actually voted. I do have my own opinions. I would love for her to, and I'd love for him to vote. I'd love for all my kids to vote. My oldest son, I believe, and his wife votes. And it might not be the way I would vote, and that's okay. I love my kids, and I know they love me. And there are friends out there that absolutely they do not vote the way I vote, and that's okay too. Some of them get very frustrated with me because of the way I vote, and I'm, in all honesty, I'm disappointed in the way they vote. But it's our ideals, our beliefs form our basis for what we decide to move forward to in voting. So when my daughter asked me who I was voting for and asked her who she might vote for if she was able to vote today, and she gave me her answer, I go, listen, it's not about the who, it's about the why. When we vote, as Americans, we have the privileges and freedoms in this country to vote for whoever we like, including third party. If you want to vote for the Green Party, if you want to vote for the Independent Party, if you want to vote for any of these other individuals, you have the right and freedom. If you could write in Yoda as your candidate that you want to vote for. We have the God-given privilege of putting anything on that piece of paper that we want to put on. And that's the kind of freedoms that we experience here in America that many other countries do not get to have those opportunities. In some countries, as far as my understanding is that we have the right and privilege to not vote if we want to. And I believe, I was listening to some Australian news, the Australian newscasters were indicating that they don't get the privilege of not voting. They have to vote. Now, I don't know that for a fact. I haven't fact-checked that, but these were the Australian news reporters, Sky News, and I believe that they said this. So I told my daughter, I said, it's not about the why, the who, it's about the why you're voting for them. And so I wanted to share with her on a few reasons why I chose the candidate that I chose. And the reason why I chose the candidate that I chose are based on policies. It's based on that this person is a real person, that when they speak, it might not always be the nicest thing that people want to hear. It might not be always the pleasantries and the politics and the right answers that people just want to be able to ingest and let that be a part of their everyday lives. And they hear what they want to hear. But it might be something that is otherworldly to a political position or what people are used to seeing in a political arena. And that's what Americans are used to. We're used to seeing these highly polished candidates for their political parties coming before a media that makes sometimes them look even more polished or less polished, depending on how their biases go, and they show these individuals in a light that is either welcoming or very unbecoming. And what we've seen in recent years are some candidates that are they're molded out of a different type of clay. And that clay doesn't always agree with the normal political bent of society. And in the course of me sharing with my daughter who I was voting for, I wanted her to know that it has nothing to do with sometimes the person. And there's people that I absolutely would not want to vote for that are in my political party just because of their character. I don't know if I would sit out or I would just not vote for it. I don't know where I would stand if I didn't agree with their policies. If their policies were okay and they were still kind of messed up people, then I would vote for policy over everything because that's what's most important. And so I voted for policy. And I want my kids to vote for their beliefs and ideologies, even if their ideologies and beliefs kind of start off like mine did, in a very liberal context, based on my world situation, about the world that I was aware of at that time. And so, as I was talking to my daughter, and I was very proud that she asked me who I was voting for, and I was able to have this conversation with her. It was a very important moment that I could bond with my oldest daughter and talking to her about why I'm voting for who I'm voting for. And I'm voting for that individual because of their fight, their stance. They're willing to fight on behalf of the American people. They're willing to stand in the trenches. That they're willing to sacrifice their lives for our lives. That is a person that has a character that the majority of politicians have never, ever in the history of my lifetime, except possibly Ronald Reagan, who was willing to do something like that they would lay down their lives for their enemies, for their friends, for the American people, and for the right thing. And you know what? They're a messed up person. They're a messed up guy. Okay? They say crazy things sometimes. I guess you know who he is. Okay? I'm proudly voting once again for Donald J. Trump. This is my third time voting for him. And I'm voting for him because he is a real person. If you don't like him, and you're still kind of on the fence, because I believe that most people are not on the fence anymore. I believe that you've either voted, you know who you're going to vote for, and if you are on the fence, you probably know who you're going to vote for, you just haven't done it yet. But if you are kind of that fourth person that's just still kind of up in the air, I'm like, I really can't figure these things out, go and listen to those individual interviews of them talking to Joe Rogan. Go listen to their town hall meetings. Go listen to who they are as a person. When Donald Trump got shot, it's a devastating event. I'm glad he's okay. I would not want that to happen to anybody. I not only am I certain of this, it's actually been stated. There are people out there that said, doggone it, he missed. And there was Jack Black's brother that, his birthday wish was, hey, next time don't miss. And I know that there are people out there that think that way. And I know that there are conservative people that think the same way about the other candidates. So I know that it's absolutely, human beings are flawed. We do things that are flawed. We think things that are flawed. Every single one of us is flawed. Okay, we are, as former Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton said, we are all deplorables. And that fault that we are all in the basket of deplorables. All of us as human beings are flawed, okay? And some of those flaws look dirty and nasty, and some of those flaws you'll never see. They are hidden, they're covered up, and no one will ever see them. But when Donald Trump got shot, the RNC, the Republican National Convention, was coming up, and I watched it. It was okay. It was all right. I enjoyed it for the most part because of, again, I lean right, and it was just something I was going to do. And when he came out on that stage, it was the first time in probably, I'm going to say 40 years, that I ever saw that he was a human being. Yeah, the Apprentice, movies, commercials, Oprah Winfrey, his relationships with people over decades, him being in a spotlight of entertainment and business over 40 years of my lifetime. I've always seen a man who was bigger than the media even made him out to be. So I never saw the soft underbelly. And to be frank, I don't want to see Donald Trump's soft underbelly. Okay. I want to see the man. And for the first time in my life, Donald J. Trump stepped out on a stage after being shot, and for the first time, I saw his soft underbelly. I saw the humanness of a man who not only cared for the country, cared for his family, but he was no longer larger than life. He was just a man who cares. And that's all the difference in the world. That's the reason why I said go and watch. And what you probably have, I think there's probably 90 million, or probably quite a bit more than that, 90 million people that have watched the Joe Rogan podcast, and you can see the man. Go watch him in some of his town hall meetings, and you'll see the man. Go see him do some of his other one-on-one interviews with other people, and you'll see the man. You won't see the businessman, you won't see the politician, you'll see somebody that's willing to have a conversation. Somebody that doesn't come out as a polished diamond that has been honed by professionals to be this caricature of himself as an American representative of politics. Okay, we see a man who is able to not only run a business, but to bring a country back from the brink of war, to bring a country back from the brink of economic devastation, and to change America into a greater nation. We are the greatest nation on the earth, and that's not some speaking point. There are literally, it doesn't matter if 21 million illegals have entered into our country. What matters is there's 21 million illegals that want to get into our country, and it doesn't end there. That's the tip of the iceberg. Those are the individuals that want to come into our country because they want something better for their life. Some of them don't want something better, but they want something better. But there has to be a legal and good process to bring them in. I agree with streamlining bringing people into this country. But it still has to be done in the right way, legal way. Let's get rid of this 10, 15, 20-year process of making them a citizen if they truly want to be a productive citizen to our country. But it has to start today. And it has to start with someone somewhere. And it has to be done the right way. And it has to be done by the legal processes and us knowing who's coming in here. We allow people into our country that have hurt us. And we need the right person as President of the United States to come in here to do the right things. Recently, Donald Trump has thrown out a few things that wasn't expecting to hear, such as no taxes on tipped employees. I think there needs to be probably a monetary number there. I mean, there's probably some tipped employees that make a whole lot of money. So, I believe there probably needs to be some kind of limit on that. But, these are the processes that have to take place for us to get to that point. I also believe that, maybe no taxes on police officers to a monetary point, no taxes on military, no taxes on our teachers, okay, that don't make a lot of money, that don't make a lot of overtime. Maybe no taxes on educators, scholastic educators, elementary all the way to high school. Maybe those guys don't need to be paying taxes, okay? But he's the one who started that. He's the one who brought that out, okay? $25,000 for a new home. I'm a realtor. For a first-time home buyer, that money would go a long way, but I want to tell you right now, that money would not actually necessarily allow a first-time home buyer to actually buy a home. That money might only get them their feet wet in order to potentially get looked at to see if they actually qualify to buy that home, and actually if they're even able to pay for it. That $25,000 doesn't take off the price of the cost of a home. What we have to look for is viable resources to be able to let people buy homes that are affordable for them. Many years ago, people were buying homes left and right, and they couldn't afford them. We don't need to be in that position again. Just like, and I would definitely benefit from this. Our college loans being forgiven. I don't agree with it, but if it happened, then I that would be one less burden in my life that I'd have to worry about. And so I didn't necessarily have a problem with it, but it never happened. We were also told that cancer was going to be cured. That there are cures and coming. We know they're coming, but it's not been done. But our economy, up until COVID, was strong and getting stronger, and it can be strong again. So, in the course, this is much longer than I anticipated, but I'm going to end here soon. It all comes down to, I was more than happy to be able to discuss with my daughter the reason why I was voting the way I was voting and voting for Donald J. Trump. And I am so excited about this particular election. I will say in 2020, it's easy to say this now because it's long past, but I was proud to vote for him then as well. Just something didn't feel right, and he lost, and that's all there is to it. And as evidence to my opinion on the validity of why I vote, is I had a big truck that consumed lots of gasoline, and the day shortly after the election took place, I told my wife I had to get a new car because I will not be able to afford to drive this truck anymore, and I have to get a car that gets decent gas mileage. And I was right. The gas prices more than doubled, and you can't say that is because of who's in office. It absolutely has everything to do with who's in office about what happens in our economy and why we're in the inflation we are in now, why our groceries cost twice as much as they do now, why our gas prices went up double. I disagree with the housing market. The housing market was caused by something completely different. That housing market, I believe, was actually caused by COVID, because people could work from home, people could transfer their jobs and move to states that were more affordable. People could sell their homes in very expensive areas of this country and move to places like Florida and buy a very nice home compared to where they were living at for a a fraction of what they sold it for and be able to save money. So all of those things that took place in the housing market, I believe the housing market, the prices went up. I believe they're going to stay up. I believe we might see a slight dip, but not such a significant dip that the first-time home buyer that is an average money maker is going to be able to afford the prices that are today. So we need to come up with affordable homes for them, such as a young couple or a young person that wants to own a first-time home, tiny homes, things like that. We need to build tiny home neighborhoods, and they need to be good homes. They don't need to be homes that can be destroyed in a windstorm like we experienced here in Tampa Bay. And they can earn equity off of those homes. They can live in them as long as they want, and then turn around and sell them and make money off of them. There needs to be a value in them being able to buy a new home, not just giving some money and say, hey, we know you can't afford these payments, but at least you got into a home. If you can't afford the payments, then it means you can't afford to feed yourself. You can't afford to feed your family. It means you can't afford to put gas in your car. It means you can't have pizza on a Friday night. You can't have a movie night. I know what those things are like right now. Right now, not 10 years ago. 20 years ago, I was doing great. And I'm not anymore. And it's been based on the economies that took place during Democratic-led presidencies that put us in these situations. We are seeing a repeat of the market failings and the economy failings that have been based on the Democrats' policies during the Obama administrations and more recently the Biden-Harris administration. And the things that they said that they could fix when they're elected again, they didn't do while they were in office. The Roe versus Wade was overturned while Joe Biden was in office. And he says, if you re-elect me, I will overturn those. They can do it right now if that's what they said they're going to do. The things that they're going to say they're going to fix, they could be fixing them right now. And if they fix those things right now, they have a week to say we have fixed these things, and they would probably get some more votes. But they didn't do it because they either can't do it or they're waiting for the opportunity to say, choose us and we'll fix them. But they've been in the office for 3.5 years. Kamala Harris keeps saying for 10 years for the past decade, because of Donald Trump, for the past decade, Donald Trump was in office for 4 years. That means 3.5 years of their office and another 3.5 years close to that of Barack Obama being in office. That's a decade. Donald Trump was in office for 4 years. That means 6 years you had a Democratic-led presidency. And so every time she says a decade, just remember 6 years of a decade was theirs. And really 3.5 years was President Donald J. Trump because of COVID. COVID stopped everything. And we were on our way. And we will be back on our way again. And I'm not even going to worry about what happens next week because I believe that he has the presidency next week. What I'm going to start thinking about is 2028. And that's going to be what the next political movement needs to be in this country, is not what happens on November 5th, 2024, but what happens on on Super Tuesday, 2028. And that's what I'm going to be looking forward to next, whether it's Vance, whether it's Vivek, whether it's Tulsi Gabbard. Those are kind of my top three. Ron DeSantis, I like Ron DeSantis, but I like Vivek better. I like Tulsi better, and I don't think Robert Kennedy will ever be president, but I do like that he's going to be involved with the next phase of what's coming. So as you get started moving, if you're interested in all in my opinion, which most people are not going to be interested in my opinion, and that's okay. But if you're interested in my opinion, we will be a better country underneath the presidential term of the next 4 years under Donald Trump and JD Vance. And I'm going to be looking to 2028, and I hope you are too. Hope you have a blessed day. Thank you for taking the time to just spend time with me and listening to me today. And hopefully be able to talk to you guys more later. God bless you. God bless America. I love you. Take care.